at the university, and I have been it's just such a, as all of you know, it's a wonderful family. It's a tremendous university community. I remember going through my orientation in HR back in the late 90s, and telling them, sending an email afterwards saying what a great process it was. It was something I dreaded so much. I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible, but it was great. It was so informative and helpful. And so it's, you know, not only the HR group, but I also have a big fondness for anybody that works on the grounds at the university. I know we have a couple of botanists who I chased one down one day to tell her how awesome I thought she was and how beautiful the campus was. And she was like, who is this weird professor telling me that he likes the plants? This is so bizarre. So anyway, it's just, we have just a great family at AU, and it's a real pleasure to be part of that. So thank you all for the invitation. I'm going to go ahead and share these slides at this point and kind of get rolling. I'm looking forward to talking with you all today a little bit about kindness. In fact, one of the things that I usually do is I make changes to my presentation right up until the very last minute, which about 30 seconds ago, I was doing the same thing. And I changed the title, and I went from kindness in the workplace to kindness now, because I thought, you know what, now, if more than ever, and even before, and last year at this time, and 2 years ago and 10 years ago, we've needed more kindness in our world. And so what I hope to be able to do in this presentation is to just kind of share with you all, first off, a little bit of the research about kind of what's going on in the world right now with the workforce. And I think you're going to find this pretty astounding, because the data that I'm going to show you are all data that happened, that were released right before COVID. So I'll remind you of that when I get to it, because that's just kind of set the stage for you. And then we're going to get into some of the science behind kindness and what it means in the workplace and in our lives, and what it means when we have it, when we don't have it, and then some tips and things that we might do. Also, this is not going to be me talking. I've got a couple of, I didn't do the polls. I thought we'd just do it via chat, and Jennifer's going to help with what we see coming in. But I've got a couple of questions I'll pose for everyone and ask you to please just jot a quick answer really quick so we can kind of see what's going on. And by all means, please, if you have any questions at any time during the time that I'm talking, or just text it or chat it right away, and we'll take care of it. It'll be good. We'd love to have this as interactive as we can. So I mentioned that we go to kindness now, and that is true. But here's something else. So I do these presentations around the country each year, probably 35 to 50 times a year, in various parts of the country. And I usually speak about things like kindness and compassion and, you know, trust in the workplace and org culture and things like that. But I always start with this slide. And I wanted you all to see this slide. And normally you wouldn't show this slide to people from your own university, but I want you to see it because I want you to hear what I say about our school to the people that I speak to around the country. And what I tell them is I say, we're a small liberal arts university in Northwest DC. I tell them that we were founded in 1893 by Act of Congress on February 24th, 1893 to be specific. The president at the time was Benjamin Harrison. This is probably the most successful thing he ever did as president, which is a totally different subject altogether, but it's our university. I take great pride in talking about our school as a school that is very diverse, that it's a very inclusive school. I love to talk about how in 2014, some of you may know this, we entered into a relationship with another local university. And I can never remember that university's name because I'm not sure they're even still accredited. Oh yeah, George Washington University. That's one of my favorite opening jokes. I love that joke. So we start off talking about the relationship that we built with GW back in 2014, where we entered into a relationship with them to build a solar farm. And now, as of 2018, we get over half of our energy from the sun. So we're a very environmentally sensitive university, and that's kind of lost on a lot of people. They don't really know that. And then the last thing I tell them about is our president, because our program, the Key Executive Leadership Program, we do leadership development for public and nonprofit, but most of the people that we work with are in the federal government. And as you all know, Sylvia came from the Fed. We call her a Fed. My favorite thing to say about her is that, and I don't know that I have the date exactly right, but we love the fact that we have a Fed as our president because we are all about the federal government in the Key program. And one of the things I love to say is Sylvia started working on June 1st and we started sucking up to her on May 31st. Now, I'm not sure that those dates are exactly right, but we definitely sucked up to her before she arrived because we wanted her to know who we were, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's what I share about the university. I'm just very proud of this school and very proud of the people that are part of this university and part of this community. So thank you all for being there and being part of such a wonderful place to work. So our world did change, and our world changed. I remember, at least for me, I think we're all going to have this in mind. I think for me, it was on St. Patrick's Day, which I realized at that point, oh my gosh, the bars aren't open. What are we going to do? You know, things are changing. And it really did start to change. But before the world changed for us this last spring, a couple of other things happened. Um, we knew back in January, I mean, in January, before COVID really hit our shores, we knew that our workforce was stressed and we knew that they were afraid and we knew that they were lonely. This is pre-COVID, okay? This is pre-COVID. So stressed, we knew that our nation, 83% of the folks that we work with suffer from work-related stress. A large number, this is some Gallup data that was released in 2019. We know that we lose $300 billion yearly as a result of the stress. So it's a very dangerous thing. People are stressed, and this data was released at the end of last calendar year. So once again, this is pre-COVID. We also know that people are afraid. So every year, Chapman University does a American Fear survey. They released this data early in the year. So this data was released before COVID hit our shores. So prior to the pandemic, when Chapman released this data, 3 of the top 10 fears that Americans faced had to do with either becoming ill, dying, or paying medical bills. Think about that for a minute. 3 of the top 10 fears before the pandemic were tied to things directly related to a pandemic. We were afraid of this long before that virus hit our shores. The other thing that people are afraid of, their number one fear, corrupt government. The election. They're worried about the election. So not only are they afraid of dying and illness and paying medical bills, but they're also afraid of our government right now. They're afraid of where it's going. And this data comes out every year in January. I just found it so intriguing that it came out just before the pandemic. And there was a White House briefing a few weeks ago where an NBC reporter asked the president this question. He said nearly 200 dead, 14,000 sick, millions scared. And he posed the question, what do you say to Americans who are watching right now who are scared? And the president did not choose to answer that question. He decided to approach the answer a different way. But the mayor of Los Angeles did answer this question. And what Mayor Garcetti said is, you know what? It's okay. It's okay that we're scared. It's okay right now. We need to be able to embrace that. We're worried about the economy. This phrase, abundance of caution, we've never used that phrase, not in our lives until now. And now we use it all the time. You know, we've been sheltering in place. We're just now starting to get away from that in a very cautious way. So there's no doubt that we are all afraid. So we've got anxiety, we're afraid, and all of this is before the pandemic. We also know that our workforce is lonely. There have been a couple studies done on this. This work was done in 2015 at Brigham Young University, and the research found that there was an increased rate of mortality due to loneliness or social isolation. So for people that are lonely or that are socially isolated, they die sooner, is essentially what the research said. And it's not just BYU that says this. A lot of research from various medical schools around the country support this. This is very commonly accepted in the world of medicine, that loneliness and social isolation leads to early death. Now, I want to clarify, loneliness doesn't mean living alone. That's not loneliness. Living alone is fine. In fact, Sweden has one of the highest rates of single person households in the world, and they're one of the happiest nations in the world. So it isn't that people that live alone are lonely. There are a lot of people that live in big families that are lonely. So it's an issue of loneliness and social isolation. These are very, very dangerous phenomenons for us, not only in our life, but in our workplace as well. And recognizing that there are people out there. And once again, pre-pandemic, this is pre-pandemic. The US Loneliness Index came out in January. 61% of Americans reported themselves as lonely. Over half of our nation said they were lonely in January. So we've got an issue with this. And I thought, you know, when I looked at this study for loneliness, I thought, well, you know what? At least the younger generations probably got it going on, because you've got, I've got, all my daughters are millennials. I've got millennial daughters, and you know, a lot of our students are Gen Zs. And so, you know, we have a lot of intergenerational connection. And my initial thought was, okay, well, 61% of the nation is lonely. That must mean old people, not the younger generation. They're comfortable with social platforms. They're comfortable with social media. And even in a time of isolation, they're reaching out to their networks and they're feeling good. But I was wrong, because of that survey that came out in January by Cigna. Ages 18 to 22, 73% of them report being lonely. And for those that use heavy social media, more of them are lonely than those who don't use as much social media. So look around at those millennials and those Gen Zs. They're more lonely than the older folks. They're more lonely than me. I'm a boomer. They're more lonely than me. And so it's frightening to me that we have a world right now, we have a workplace that has this level of stress, this level of fear, and this level of loneliness. And then the pandemic hit. So with the pandemic, we've seen this increased use in alcohol. We've seen worsening chronic health problems. None of us are sleeping as well. Of course, Zoom fatigue. In fact, I saw from President Burwell this morning, the Wednesday afternoon Zoom free announcement, which I thought was just brilliant. What a nice idea that is, because we are, that Zoom fatigue is real. It's a catchy phrase, but it's real. There's a lot of things that don't happen when we're on the computer that are very stressful for us in the way that we think, in the way that we process in our brains. This change in routine has been huge for us as well, because this has been one of the biggest things that we've all had to adjust to. Routine gives us a lot of comfort. Even the crazy people around us that are so easygoing and, oh, I'm just so wild and wacky, I do different things every day. Yeah, but there's a routine to that too. We're kind of pre-designed for that. We're genetically predispositioned for this kind of constancy and consistency and repetitiveness and predictability. So change in routine has been a factor for us. So if there was ever a time for kindness, now is a good time for kindness. I mean, think about it. So this guy, Jack Kerouac, most of you probably won't know who this is, but Jack was the founder, given credit oftentimes as being the founder of the beatnik movement. And in the beatnik movement, back in the 60s, and I'm a child of the 60s, I'm a child of the Beatles, and Jack had this phrase, which is, practice kindness every day, and you'll realize you're already in heaven. And I think that's a really nice way to think about kindness for us, is that we're already in heaven if we're practicing kindness now. And I do have a theory. And the theory is that if we had more Dallas Cowboy fans in the world, that it would be a kinder place. Okay, I'll wait for the laughter, and I'll wait for the Washington Redskin fans to email me and say, oh my gosh. So, hey, by the way, I see a comment there from Charlie about the neuroscience. Charlie, I'm actually going to get to the tiger thing here soon. It's really, really cool. Thanks for bringing that up. So yes, I'll put that out there, because this is America's team. This is God's team. This is the Dallas Cowboys. We are going to win the Super Bowl this year, and I'll get off of football for now. So here's my question number one. First question number one, I need to just throw some chats out there, everyone. Give me some love here. What is the kindest state in the U.S.? Just give me what you, oh, look, Ohio from Cheney, way to go, rock on. Ohio right away. Anybody else? Let's see what else is out there. Oregon, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Keep on going. Hawaii. Oh yeah, it's hard. Yeah, hard not to be kind in Hawaii. Thanks, Melissa. And by the way, you still owe me a paper. That's a joke. I'm just kidding, Melissa. That's just kidding. See, this is where my former students get to kill me, because I know you're going to all rate this later on. And my former students are going to be like, okay, yeah, this guy, I had him as a prof. Now I get to go back. Corone, thank you, Corone Martinez, thank you so much, California. So here is the answer to this question, the kindest state in the U.S. Are you ready for this? Minnesota. Now, isn't that odd to see, with the current situation, to see Minnesota listed as the kindest state? Tennessee, South Carolina, Texas, that's my home state, Wyoming, Indiana, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Hawaii. I saw a few in there. Hawaii, yes, definitely. So, yes, so here's a few in here. Here's another one. Here's your second question. What is the unkindest state in the U.S.? New Jersey. I love Cheney's all over this. Beautiful New Jersey, New York. In fact, I think those are 1 and 2. D.C. if a state. Oh, D.C. soon to be a state. I could just watch these chats come in all day long. These are terrific. No, very good guesses, everyone. The unkindest states in the country, New York. Yes. Number 1, New York. And then Arkansas, which I find kind of odd, but I suppose I've got a couple of daughters that live in Washington State, and they tell me that Washington State, especially the Seattle area, is not a very kind place. Florida, thank you, Amanda, 100% right. Courtney, you nailed it. Ashley nailed it, without a doubt. So, yeah, they call it the Seattle freeze, interestingly, up there in Seattle. So, we know kindness when we see it, and we know it when we don't. And I had a video I wanted to show you. I couldn't make it work this morning, but it was quite entertaining of kind of a subtle unkindness where we make kind of under our breath comments about things. But the thing about kindness is that we know that when we don't have it, that it has an impact on us. And here's what I mean by that. So impact on the job. When we have workplaces that are marked by lacks of kindness, we know that they can lead to depressed immune systems. People that work in toxic environments actually are sicker, and they have more sick time. They take more sick time. There's more turnover in workplaces that are not kind and compassionate by nature. Elevated glucocorticoids, these lead to some really bad blood issues and obesity and other problems whenever we see unkindness. There was a study in 2012 that tracked women for 10 years that found they were 38% more likely to have a heart-related event if they worked in an unkind environment. A later study on kindness in clinical settings found that patients considered gratitude and compassion to be more important than clinical skill. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, because before I came to American University, I was on the faculty at a medical school. And I used to teach medical students, and we talked about this in our classes, about the importance of kindness in the exam room. And I would tell them, listen, don't turn your back on your patient when they walk into your room. Don't sit there and type while they're talking. You need to turn around and look at them and listen to them. So we know this has an impact. There's also more bad news. I'm going to get beyond the bad news here in a moment, because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. This particular study found that 71% of doctors and nurses that were surveyed in this one particular piece of research found that medical errors were caused by unkindness, and same with patient deaths, that toxic behaviors and unkindness related to patient deaths. And I saw that the note a bit before about the neural shutdown, that refers to some work by a guy named David Rock. David Rock is a neuroscientist who runs the Neuroscience Leadership Institute. So let me say a couple things about David. First of all, what a great name. I mean, let's be honest, what an awesome name. If my name was David Rock, we'd have 10,000 people on this. It's David Rock. It's just such a cool name. So it's not, Patrick Malone has too many syllables. But David does this really cool work with neuroscience. And one of the things that he talks about is he says that when we are in a meeting, so I'll give this an example. We're sitting at AU, we're in a meeting with our staff, and let's say that our boss or our supervisor says something kind of cruel to us or mean or very dismissive, or it's just outright toxic to us. We literally go into neural shutdown. What happens in our brains, and what David suggests, is what happens in our brains is in danger. So think about this from a neuroscientific perspective. What fires in the brain, happens when we're in a meeting, and it happens when our life is in danger. The same thing's happening. The same neural connections are firing. The difference is that we react differently. So if we're being chased by a tiger, we're running or jumping into a tree or trying to get away. What happens in the meeting is that we go into neural shutdown. We stop contributing. We stop thinking. We go into protective mode because our ego is damaged. We don't feel trusted anymore. So we really become non-contributory whenever that happens in a meeting. But it's this. And that's why kindness is so important. That's why this matters so much. You know, we have a long history in leadership of focusing on metrics and measured data, and all that's good. You need all of those things in order to make good decisions. But this is measurable. We know this happens now. So it's not just a soft skill. It's no longer Patrick's the tree-hugging liberal professor from down in the Spring Valley building that talks about kindness all the time. Well, he's so cool. No, there's more to it than that. The science tells us this happens in our bodies and in our brains. There's no denying this. So this is very serious, and the impact is bad. The good thing is that we still see kindness on occasion. And if someone could just chime in here with something they witnessed recently in terms of kindness. See, that was kind hug right there. I saw that on the screen. That was beautiful. So that was great. I'm watching you. I see you over there. It's all good. So chime in with anything you saw kind recently. And I'm going to tell you a story about this whenever we do. So we know that kindness begets kindness. There was a study done, a very famous study done a few years ago. And it was on a seminary. I can almost envision this happening at Wellesley right next door to us. There was a seminary, And what they did is they staged 2 actors in one part of the campus. And students that walked past those 2 actors witnessed what was happening. And what they witnessed was one actor pretending to be homeless and one actor pretending to be a mean person yelling at the homeless person. So it was one person just berating them, saying horrible things to them, and then the other actor was pretending to be homeless. On the other part of campus, it was normal. There were no actors, just normal business. So what they did is the seminarians that actually walked past and witnessed the person berating the homeless person activity test. The people that didn't witness this were given the same test. Guess who scored better? Those who did not witness. We know that when we witness unkindness, we're less likely to be kind. And when we witness kindness, we're more likely to be kind. We're more likely to replicate that behavior. I see the chats in here about a neighbor knocked on the door to give fresh herbs to the family from the garden. That's delightful. A hug from a child. Yeah, that's a lovely thing. No doubt about it. A 10-year-old nephew told his mom it was their responsibility, since both parents have a job, to do something. He initiated his family's donation to a local food bank. Perfect. You know, it's interesting that of the few responses I see here that they involve children. About a year ago, I went out when I was doing some research and I typed in the word kindness into Google Images, because I love Google Images and I wanted to see what would come up. Almost all of the first couple of pages were children, is what I saw. And I thought, well, now, why is that? Why is it that we see children and not grown-ups and not corporations or logos from organizations? Why do we see children? Well, I think we all know why. But anyway, so things that we witness that are kind are very helpful. And here's what we know about kindness. We know that we are predispositioned for this. Children are naturally inclined to feel empathy. Even 18-month-old children, when shown a picture of something, of another person or of a teddy bear that looks sad, they'll instinctively reach out to comfort and care for that item. And this is long before children really understand exchange theory. They don't really understand that something is in it for them. So we know we're naturally inclined to do this. In fact, Sean Anker makes the suggestion that if we do something kind for 21 consecutive days, for just 2 minutes a day, it'll rewire our brain. And this goes back to what I said before about the neural shutdown. The way that we think is typically on a horizontal plane. We think in our comfort levels, which is good, especially for emergencies. We react quickly. But what we don't do is we don't establish new pathways of thought. And by doing this, we can actually create new behaviors that will last. We know that kindness leads to job success. We have direct correlations between wealth and relationships and better health. And we also know that people that simply smile when they greet someone in a hallway are considered warmer and more competent and more civil. My uncle, who's a tremendous influence on me over my life, I've always been such an admirer of his, and I still am, because he can't go anywhere he never meets a stranger. He just never meets a stranger. He strikes up conversations with people out of nowhere, and they all seem so drawn to him. And it's just because he's a kind, humble man. He's just a delightful guy. And so I've always admired that about him. And I remember him telling me one time when I first started getting out of college, he said, you know, Patrick, he said, people can tell more about you when you pass them in a hallway than anybody, than any other time. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, he said, let me ask you this. He goes, you walk into the hallway and you see your boss, or you see someone that looks important. You know, what are you likely to do? You're going to smile and say, oh, good morning. He said, but what if you're seeing the person that's, you know, pushing the cart going from room to room to, you know, to clean or something? Are you going to acknowledge them? Because some people don't. And he's right. In fact, one of the experience that I had over in Spring Valley Building a few years ago, and I hate to tell the story because it's so sad, but it does make my point. And that is, I got on the elevator on the first floor, and it went up to the third floor, and the door opened. And as the door opened, there was a woman standing there who had the cart with the trash cans and all the cleaning materials and everything. And I'm the only person in the elevator, the only one. And the door opens, and she looks at me, and she sees that I'm the only one in there, but she doesn't want to come onto the elevator with me. She goes, no, I'll wait. And I grabbed the door. I said, no, join me, please. I said, you know, come on. And she was so surprised that I invited her to get on the elevator with me. And when she got on the elevator, I said, how are you doing today? You know, things are sure looking wonderful. Thank you for helping keep our workspaces so nice. And and I don't tell that story to say that I'm a kind person, because Jennifer can tell you that I'm really not. But I'm telling you that story because what shocked me was her reaction to kindness. It was like she didn't expect it. And I thought, oh my Lord, how many people must she run into every day that don't even acknowledge her or what she does for our campus and to make our workplace as nice as it is. And that, I mean, when I put the smiley face here, that gentle, kind interaction with people is just really, really crucial. The other research on this, and I won't get into all of this because it's just a lot of detail behind it. Kindness ranked above physical attractiveness on most dating websites, actually on all of them, which is great. Patients' colds are shortened when they have providers that care. Lowering the effect of stress and anxiety, better well-being. These are all things that we know. Wonderful work going on at UC Berkeley on this. In fact, I encourage you to go to the Greater Good website, wonderful website. And they've got some good stuff out there. Just type Greater Good into Google, it'll pop right up. And Dacher Keltner, who I've had a crush on for years, is a great guy and is very noble, wonderful researcher on kindness. They found that lower class individuals have a stronger vagal nerve response. I'm not going to get into what that means. It's a physiological response to kindness, to giving and receiving kindness that's measurable. I do need to define the term lower class individuals. When we say lower class, we're talking about Washington Redskin fans. Okay, that wasn't very kind. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, it's notes down. I got it. Okay, no, lower socioeconomic status. That's what I'm talking about, of course. But we also know that people of lower socioeconomic status class give more money as well as a percentage of their income. That's always been consistent across the years. And then managing and maximizing interest. This is what most of us do. We spend about 60% of our time on our self-interest and a little less time focusing on others. And I think the researchers out at Berkeley would propose that we flip those numbers and maybe just spend a little more time thinking about others. This is my Jeep. This is what I drive to work most of the time. And the reason I put this up there is because I want you to see what this looks like because Jeep Wrangler drivers wave to each other. It's called the Jeep wave. And we always do it. And it's only if you drive a Wrangler. And it's almost like a little peace sign wave. It's like, it's not like a, hey, it's not like that. It's like a little cool, yo, I got you. You know, it's kind of just, it's cool. I got you. You know, you're there, I'm there. We're both Wrangler drivers. It's really neat. And it's so cool because when I drive to work, which I don't do as often anymore, but when I do drive to the campus, I get 5 or 6 waves from strangers. And it is the coolest thing ever. It makes me happy. It makes them happy. It's a neat connection. It's kindness. Look, motorcyclists, I know you do this too. Please sell your bikes. They're dangerous. Boaters, I know you do this too, and that's fine. But Wrangler drivers only do it to other Wrangler drivers, which I guess could mean that we're not kind to other people, but that's a different story. Okay, last couple of slides. Workplace benefits. This is huge. This number, put this in your brain, this number. If you witness kindness in the workplace, if you witness compassion, or if you give kindness and compassion and it's witnessed by somebody else, they are 287% more likely to do it themselves. How powerful is that? We can make a difference. It doesn't matter what level we're at. We don't have to be the boss. It doesn't matter what level we're at the university, wherever we're working, whatever role we have, we can make this a kinder place because all we have to do is start by doing it ourselves. And this is the impact that we can have. Organizationally, you know, people will often ask me, well, how does this apply organizationally? Well, we know there's better productivity. We know have better retention with kindness, positive employees, but you got to talk about it. You got to say it. You know, we have to have in our mission, in our values, in our policies within our departments and the various schools, we have to talk about this. We can't just say, oh yeah, we like it, we want it. We have to talk about it and put it in writing. And we have to hold people accountable when we don't see it. And we have to raise up those who are kind, because this is how we make it a better place to work. And it's a better world for all of us. And this is just not in the workplace, but also in our own lives as well. I think from a personal strategy point, you know, you got to be good with self. And we talk a lot about this. There's nothing more important than strong self-awareness and strong emotional intelligence. And we talk about this in the key programs a lot. In fact, we offer to do this for any of the schools working with HR. We're happy to do these sessions for anyone where we talk about how to find a sense of self, how to grow a comfort with self such that we have strong emotional intelligence skills. Being clear with the people we lead. If we're in supervisory capacity, you know, one of Brene Brown, who many of you may know, Brene Brown from all of her TED Talks. So Brene is a wonderful researcher at the University of Houston, and one of the things that she says is that we have to be clear with others, and it clear is kind, and unclear is unkind, and that's really true. Being vulnerable and humble and appreciative and encouraging. These are all things. Right now, it's hard to be present. It's a very difficult thing for us to be present right now because of the nature of the place where we are in our workplace. But you know what? It's still possible. It's not the same connection, and there's no replacement for human to human connection. But you know what? We're mastering this Zoom thing, except on Wednesday afternoons. And so this is a great way to start being present for those that we care about. This is my homework for you all, and then I'm going to ask for questions. National Random Acts of Kindness Day. Please send me an email on this day. If you'll put this in your phone as a reminder, I would be eternally grateful, because I would just like you to send me an email every year on the same time and just say, Patrick, this is what I did that's kind today, because every February 17, I want to try to break the American University server. Now, Wasim, who is our IT guy in the School of Public Affairs, said, no way, man, you'll never break that server. I'm like, dude, I'm going to get 1 million hits on one day. You just wait. So I'm not actually trying to break the server if the provost is on the line. I'm really just trying to get people to do acts of kindness and let me know what they did. So by all means, please do that. Email me at pmalone@american.edu. Wow, this guy was good. Key Executive Leadership Programs. This is what we're all about. This is what we do. We're about meditation, mindfulness, compassion, kindness. This is the foundation of everything that we've done in this program for 50 years. And I just want to say thank you again to the council, the committee, for asking me to join. And I will stop talking and answer any questions you may have.
We have a shameful plug from George Reese. Thank you so much, George. He says he knew from the first interview with Key that kindness was so evident there. Thank you, George. Oh my gosh, look how awesome it is to see all of these thumbnails. I love seeing it. While folks are thinking about any questions or any comments you might have to share, it doesn't have to be a question. It could just be something that came to mind that you'd like to share with the group or Patrick. Please feel free to drop it in the chat, or we can unmute you and you can share your voice.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, this is a very good question. I see a question about split between full and part-time employees. Laura, I'm thinking what you're meaning is that kind of you've got a different, for lack of a better word, maybe a different status thing where part-time don't feel as much of a part of the university. That's what I'm assuming about that question. All organizations have these kind of artificial and I think unintentional mechanisms in place that can cause divides, whether it happen to be, oh, I work in this school, therefore I'm better than you, or I'm a part-time, or I'm a full-time, or I'm an adjunct versus a term versus a tenured, and all those things. Those are all things that exist in organizations. And it just takes a little bit more attention, I think, for all of us. When people are not as present because they don't work as often in the organization, because they're physically just not there as often, it's incumbent upon all of us to make a special effort to make sure they're accounted for and feel part. And I'll tell you something that Jennifer taught me one time. I was sending an email to our team, and we had a bunch of part-timers that were working in the Key program. And she knocked on my door and said, hey, Patrick, you know what? Next time you reach out, you might want to include them in the email. I'm like, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I'm so sorry. So awesome. How can we use kindness to promote change? How can we teach kindness to leaders? Good question. The best way that we can use kindness to promote change is to simply practice it, without a doubt. And I think in terms of teaching kindness to leaders, I get this question often because people often have bosses that are not approachable, for lack of a better word, and candidly may be part of the problem. And that's true at American University. It's true at any university. It's true at any organization. And I think one of the ways that we can teach kindness to the people above us is to call it out in a gentle and caring way and not risk our jobs. So, I mean, let's be honest. We want to be careful about that kind of thing. And it's easy for me to say, oh, just go tell them. But I know that that's not reality. The reality is that we can do a few things. One, I always propose that people do lunchtime sessions, like maybe once a week or once a month, get the team together for a lunchtime session to talk about an article or a book. And when it's your turn, pick a book on kindness or pick an article on kindness and kind of introduce it into the conversation in that way. If there are supervisors on the line, I'm going to ask you to please do something. Please do a 360 with your team and make it one. You don't have to do a formal one. Just put out, one of the things I do with my class in the middle of the semester is I put out a midterm exam that's on me. And the midterm says, I like it when Patrick blanks. I wish Patrick would blank. I wish Patrick would stop blanking. That's all it says. It's just 3 questions. And I just hand it out and I let them fill it out, and then they mix them all up and they hand it back to me when they walk out of the door. And it's my midterm. And I need to hear that feedback. And sometimes even though I want it, I'm not going to get it. So if you're a supervisor, it's your responsibility to seek that feedback. Don't wait on it, seek it, and provide a mechanism for your team to give you that feedback in a safe way. Because candidly, if your team doesn't feel safe giving you that feedback, it's on you, cowboy. It's on you. So it's your responsibility to do it. So please, as a supervisor, it's very easy to do, and you can make it completely anonymous. So by all means, do that and make it easy for people to let you know. It's scary. I mean, I'm a director and I'm a professor, and there are people that won't approach me because I carry those titles. And I'm like, me? Are you serious? But it is what it is. So let me see. I'm looking. There's a bunch of other great questions here. I thought all military vets are rough and tough. Oh, Tony. Hey, Tony. Good to hear from you, buddy. I appreciate that. Tony, you all know Tony is our VA liaison and does so much wonderful work with our veterans, and I'm a veteran as well. Yeah, and Tony knows as well as I do, you can't just tell people to do stuff. I mean, it's, barking out orders and having people follow it. That's just compliance. That's all that is, and that's not what we want in our workplace, that's for sure. How do you respond to individuals in the corporate world that say kindness doesn't have a place in the workplace, especially as a woman trying to climb the ladder? Great question, Cheney. And if anyone would like to email me, and Cheney, same to you, I can send you some specific links. The data simply doesn't support a contention that kindness doesn't matter. The data just doesn't support it. The workplace, private, public, nonprofit, all supports that kindness makes a huge difference. And so now, as a woman trying to climb the ladder, I'm not even going to pretend to understand the challenges that women face in the workplace. I know they're significant. One thing I would ask Cheney and anyone else that has a question about that, we do run a Women in Leadership Conference every year out of the KEY program, and we do it right there in Spring Valley. It's a very well-received conference. It's awesome. And I think that this year, didn't we do it at the law school, Jennifer? Maybe we did it at the law school this year. But it was a really, really great conference, and I can also turn you on to some resources for that as well. So, Jennifer, should I keep going on these questions? Keep looking?
We have a few.
Oh, yeah.
We have just a few more minutes. We need to end. But I think that there are some important questions here that you can speak to if people want to stay and take the time. I'll also drop in the chat box a survey. Please take the time to fill out the survey on your experience. And this survey is actually for all sessions, so not to worry if you didn't fill one out before. I'll also drop in the chat box the registration link. We are accepting same-day registrations, or just before the session begins registration. And if you have any difficulties receiving the information back, just email me directly at jtether. And finally, I'll drop in the chat box the Staff Appreciation Week virtual background, if you too would like to have the Staff Appreciation Week virtual background. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Patrick. We have a few more minutes.
Jennifer, I see, you know what, I see questions that's really disturbing that I see coming in here, and I'm going to go back to my thing about supervisors. I hope that if supervisors are on this chat, they're reading what they're seeing. And look, I'm not blaming everybody. I mean, we all have our days. But so many of these questions are saying to me, I got a supervisor who doesn't practice this, but I'm afraid to let them know. And that is a very, very bad thing organizationally. HR, I know you're watching. Please take note of that. That's very important to know that the climate, at least in this chat right now, is saying that there's a problem with our supervisors. And we can only ask our staff to do so much. You can't ask a staff member to risk their job. But what we can do is we can get this training in front of supervisors, mandatory, not if you want to come, mandatory. And I mean, this is what you do to build an organization. You have to do it purposefully and with intention. And what I see here are a lot of people saying, you know what, my supervisor, but I can't let them know, but they really need it. And this isn't unique to American University, everyone. This is something we see in other organizations as well. It's very common. So by all means, if there's anything we can do to help address that with the supervisors, and please, if you're a supervisor right now, just assume they're talking about you, because I'm telling you right now, I'm going to assume they're talking about me. So I'm going to reach out to my team now. I'm going to say, okay, everyone, somebody let me know what's going on here. How am I doing? What am I not doing well? Because it's not necessarily an intentional thing. It's just, sometimes it's just life. And sometimes we don't really understand what our bosses are involved in and what they're trying to do to protect us. And so, not blaming anyone, but I do see a common theme here that is a bit troublesome. So, and once again, if anyone would like to email me, I'm happy to send you some articles and things that you can send. One of the things you can do is send to your supervisor anything that I send you and say, hey, Patrick talked about kindness. I thought this was really cool. Thought you might want to see it. Happy to do that. But also anything formally, if there's anything that we can do from our program, that's why we're here.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you at other sessions. Our next session is cooking demo with A Healthy You. We're doing a chocolate souffle, so join us there. This afternoon, we have 7 sessions to choose from, and you can join us at any of those. Volunteering, balancing your work life and workplace, energizing your body, muscle balance, emotional intelligence, all good stuff. And then finally, at the end of the day, we have a social break with Chelsea Anderson, a resident artist, and we'll be doing a sip and paint and a mindful drawing. So please join us. We're so grateful for all of you and so appreciative for all that you do and share with our community. Words can't convey how appreciative we are and just how much it means to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Staff Appreciation Week.
Thank you, everyone.